letter. I don't want to see you. I want to get off this roller coaster. I can't take you. It was a breakup. I read it to my friends. They're like, she's breaking up with you. I'm like, God. But listen, it was, And then she writes fondly at the end, fondly. And listen to this. It wasn't even a nice draft. You know when you write a letter with a pen and you cross out stuff and then you write above it? I got that first draft. I didn't even get the finished thing. I got the rough draft. And I'm like, gosh, well, I don't know why I did this. I stuck it in a purse. A year later, I pull that purse off my shelf and I'm like, the letter. Well, I took it. We were having an R&R retreat at the Hideaway, and we have this gorgeous fireplace there. And I had it with me, and I told my board, I said, man, I got this letter again. I found it. I read it to them. And they said, you know what, Diane, you haven't forgiven. You have got to give grace, and you need to forgive. So I said, well, what do we do here? I mean, I'm not needing their advice. And they said, I think we need to burn it in this fireplace. So, we put the letter in and they prayed over me and they gave me this jar. I really wish someone said, that is the most beautiful jar. I go, I wish I didn't own this jar. And they gave me this jar with the ashes of that letter and they stuck a hanky in it. I said, what's the hanky for? And they said, because you will wash tears in heaven one day with that hanky. From beauty to ashes here. And I went to Bible study. I go to Bible study fellowship every week, and she attended this woman and would pass by me and not look at me. It was like brutal. And yet God said, you're not leaving this Bible study. You can't run. This is not the option here. And I told this friend, God has all of our friendship in his hands, the seeds, and he won't let a single drop. It made her angry. And I finally one day gave her a hug. She left the next week, left that study. But I finished that race. I finished forgiveness, and I believe we'll be friends. But I want to say to you, there will be times working with groups of women and with people, we have to just say, Father, forgive them. And forgive me if I've sinned. That's grace. That's a part of our race. And listen, if you do not do this, it will entangle you like Hebrews 12 talks about. My board said, is everything finished? And I said, no. They said, what's more? I said, well, I got my cell phone. And her name started with A, and it was the first thing that came up. And they said, do you need to delete it? And I said, I guess. And so you know how you delete and it says what? Yeah. And I'm like, yes or no? 10 minutes I sat there in tears. 10 minutes. I could not push the yes. But I did. And I'm so more not bonded. The note isn't in a purse that pulls out. The name isn't the first thing that comes up. Now, if that wanted to be restored, I would go for it. But I'd have better boundaries. But I just share that as a pastor wife and a woman in ministry. We've got to learn to give grace and forgive. And we hold grudges and we are entangled and we have to strip that off. There was one other time my husband was deeply damaged in our church, and it was put the blame on me. I called a woman in Phoenix saying, what do I do? And she said, you know what? You go to prayer and you don't talk about it. You walk in your church and you model grace. I'm like, okay. Went to our little courtyard in the back at 12 o'clock at night. I said, okay, God, all I need to know, do you love me? And that night there was a mist, and I could feel God. And then this sparrow kept going back. Midnight. I'm like, okay, I see you. I feel you. The wind was blowing. I can hear you. And then I said, okay, God, I'm going to go over the top. I'm going to ask you for one more thing. If you love me, because I am feeling unloved here. I need your grace. Give me a falling star. And here it burned over our baseball field. I got in my car, and I've moved on. And the person I was angry with is my best friend today. She doesn't even know I felt that way. I let it go. I gave her grace, and I forgave and walked on. Jesus said, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. His last statement on the cross was forgiveness. So you want to look at grace, look at the cross, the thief, and that statement, forgive them. It's a perfect picture, and he calls us to it in ministries, ladies. He does. Serve with a graceful heart as Christ served his people. Man. Then the last thing I want to say is he's going to call you to serve with a graceful heart. It's already been said, ministry's never convenient. Ministry's always hard, and it pulls us. We're at church all the time sometimes. We feel like that. Man, it's tough. God, do you not give a break? Sometimes you have to find it to get that breath. But you need to be called to serve with grace. I want to tell you as I end, 2 times, probably the biggest times in all my ministry, how I had to give grace when it was the hardest thing, and that was the death of 2 women in our church. Both, first, the youngest woman in America with Alzheimer's. Linda Geary, she was on Good Morning America, Good Women's Day magazine, walks in our church, went to a bigger church near us because she was getting lost in the halls. I said, we got 2 halls. We're a little church. So they stayed. So I start picking her up every week because she can't drive. You know what she says to me? Oh, gosh, you guys. Don't let me die alone. I'm like, okay. Do you mean it? Yes, Linda. You promise? Yes. Now, guess what? This is just when this friend is letting go of me. God knew you got to let go of this relationship because it's pulling you away of a new relationship that needs your grace desperately. So I'm in the car, and she goes, oh, I love that pastor. And I go, I love him too, Linda. Yeah, I love him. She didn't even know I was married to him. Sweet thing. She said, I just want to remember my girl's name. They were both 7. I'm like, oh, my gosh, Lord. I said, okay, Linda, I have a new prayer for you. Not that you'd remember the girls, Hannah and Rebecca, but you know the name of Jesus till the day you die. And she goes, oh, I had the wrong prayer. She goes, okay. Now we're driving. She goes, say Jesus. I said, Jesus. She goes, now say, every time you see me before you say hi, and I'll tap my heart because one day I won't be able to see it. Well, I remember the day she's admitted into a nursing home, the youngest woman. It was devastating. And I walk in, and she falls apart. I said, I'm not going to let you die alone, Linda. I made that promise to you. I looked at Lucy, her 85-year-old mother. I said, I'll be here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll feed her lunch every week till the day she takes her last breath. Because feeding was an issue, and the family was struggling with it. I could do that. Listen, ladies, it was hard. Changing diapers, feeding her. Every time I saw her, she'd do that. She didn't know Rebecca and Hannah, and that's okay. But she knew the name of Jesus. The last day on her deathbed, she couldn't move. She's just like a stiff. And I said, Linda, do you know the name of Jesus? Blink your eyes. And she blinked them hard. God gave her grace to the end, and God gave me grace to serve her. Boy, that burial was tough. And then walks in a year later. Now, I don't have this friend, remember. A young woman, not even 30 years old. Double lung transplant, dying. And I thought, I cannot do it again, God. I cannot do this again. He goes, yes, you can. My grace is sufficient for you. So Robin's on our women's ministry team. She died 2 months ago. I thought she got the new lungs. We thought hope. She has a 5-year-old boy in our church and her husband. Man, ladies, it was like tearing out my soul. Don't let me die alone, Diane, like you did Linda. Will you be here for me? Yes, Robin. I was speaking in Phoenix at a conference and got the call to get home quick. I'll tell you what, our young people gathered around her, and the last night, 22 couples with guitars and sang to her. And her death was tough. But before I went to Phoenix, she was in this coma for days.